very much, Matt. In front of you are two handouts. The front of one says evaluation, and the back is mentoring. The other one is communication track and leadership track. So what I'll be doing this evening, mainly for the benefit of our newer members, but also some of our more experienced members, this can be a review. As you know, evaluation is the key to excellence. So I'll be talking a little bit about it, then briefly addressing your handout that you can feel free to take home with you. Then talking a little bit about mentorship. And then our leadership track, as well as our communication track. Those of you who've known me for a while know that I often use a saying when speaking about evaluation. It's a Chinese saying. And the Chinese saying is this: no need to remove fly from friend's forehead with a hatchet. As a teacher, sometimes I need to remember that saying myself. You don't even have to swat the fly away, because you're going to aggravate your friend no end. You could deftly reach over and pick it away without hurting the friend at all. Evaluation is about being delicate, but at the same time effective. And in Toastmasters, if you want to hear about the whole evaluation debate, go to the Toastmaster International link. I did that this afternoon. It was fascinating. Fascinating insights by different experienced Toastmasters about the whole principle that we cannot say to someone, we should not say to somebody, you passed, you failed. However, as far as I'm concerned, we need to somehow be able to share how that person fulfilled their objectives in our perception. And the perceptions in the room all vary. In the corporate world, we have performance reviews. Sometimes people lose their jobs because they don't match up to what the employer expects of them. As a teacher, in my first years of teaching, our superintendent of education walked around to the classrooms, sat in the back, usually with arms folded, while you taught 28, 30, or 35 children, observing. And you hoped that that day your children would really behave, your students would really behave well. In Toastmasters, unlike the corporate world, promotions or pay increases have nothing to do with our evaluation. We encourage growth. We encourage people to be able to accept an evaluation. The key for evaluation, I think, is that it be personal, that it be positive, that it be constructive and meaningful. That you're able to do that without hurting someone. The whole idea is that we're here to support, to encourage, and to motivate. By learning to give analytical, honest, constructive, positive evaluations, we're learning about life. We're learning about how we can do something difficult in public, and that's to evaluate a fellow adult. And that's not always easy. And so, at the same time that we're being objective, we're also being personal. If you take a look at your sheet, you'll see some suggestions. And I have no intention of reading them all now, but you can see that I've set forth some descriptive language that you might want to consider when you're evaluating, based on your response to someone's voice, to someone's body language, to the use of pauses or paces, to the use of props, which I love using, but some people never use because they don't feel comfortable, about the use of eye contact, and other areas like clothing. Is it distracting? Is it appropriate? Is it relevant? Well, of course, some clothing is relevant and quite necessary, but often a sidetrack. How do people approach the lectern? Do they come up enthusiastically? Do they look so nervous they're going to fall apart up here? That all plays a part in the perception of the audience. And language. I could do a whole presentation on language, which I won't, but was the language creative, relevant, appropriate, incisive, descriptive, vivid? In terms of your evaluation of content, it's important to know the objectives of the speaker. And the objectives of the speaker are formed by the speaker saying, what do I want my audience to take away from this presentation? What are my goals for my audience? The manuals, the basic manual and the advanced manuals give us very clear insight about objectives. As evaluators, we need to know what those objectives are. Now tonight, Jimmy was at a bit of a disadvantage because I wasn't speaking from a manual. I suggested to Jimmy that he might want to say, was the information Pauline provided relevant, appropriate for this audience, and educational? Was it clear? Or was it too blurred, too confused, too rambling? Work at evaluating positively, constructively, and personally. And it's work. I find it far easier to do a presentation than an evaluation. Far easier. Maybe some of you are in a similar situation. Because you're dealing with people's feelings. It's not just about performance. It's about someone who may take your comments to heart. And I have to share right now, well, I don't have to, but I would like to share right now that I've changed the name of my company. And I told Lori before. My company, as you know, I'm a speaker, a trainer, has been called Communication Excellence since I retired from teaching. I don't know what that title conjures in your mind. To me, it's kind of a cold title. So my new title is called Amazingly You. And it suits me, makes me feel happy and excited and enthusiastic. And it will be much easier for me to go out and approach prospective clients, maybe in the education field, maybe young girls. I said to my granddaughter this morning, our granddaughter, Mackenzie, if someone was coming into your school to do a presentation, not a teacher, but someone from outside, what topic would you rather hear? Riding your waves or Amazingly You? And she said, Amazingly You, right away. Are we not all children inside? Do we not need to be reminded of what is amazing about us? So in your evaluation, you don't have to do that. And I need to remind myself. You need to remind people first and foremost, what is it about them that makes them amazing or unique or special? Then, how can they meet their manual objectives? And what part could they improve upon? And be tactful. Figure out what part to do publicly, what part to do privately. Let's take a look at finding and being a mentor. By the way, when my time is up, there will be round robin questions. So if I'm saying anything as I go along and want to ask me in a few minutes, just jot down the question. Finding and being a mentor. This is something that's part of our Toastmasters program. Sometimes it just happens that you meet someone, you click, and you say, oh, I'd like that person to be my mentor. Or you may see somebody stand up and present, and you think, oh, they present so well, I'd love them to be my mentor. But there's a little more to mentorship than that. I think it's easier for you to find the right mentor if you know your priorities, your Toastmaster priorities. What is number 1 in your list? And that goes with questionnaire I handed to you. What are your strengths as you see them right now? This is not about your mentor's strengths or your mentor's priorities. This is about you. Amazingly you. You list your priorities. You list your strengths. You become aware of your vulnerabilities. What direction are you headed? Are you willing to accept mentoring? How willing? These are not easy questions. And do you have the capacity to share openly with your mentor? If you need somebody to help you, look for a mentor who is understanding of you, who can be honest with you, who can communicate with you, who you trust, who will help you to bring out your best, and who believes in you. And you may have some other criteria for a mentor. There's someone in this room who I respect so much because he said to me last week, I'm still trying to figure out what kind of mentor I need. He's a fairly new member. I thought, way to go. My suggested reading is the book that Pat read from, which I took from the library. I'm a big fan of Wayne Dyer. Inspiration is what speakers are about, whether it's spiritual inspiration or another kind. There's also another book by a fellow professional speaker called Mark Sanborn called You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader. It's a little book, easy to read. And one by Denzel Washington called A Hand to Guide Me. He's interviewed all kinds of people about who their mentors were. All right, now for questions and answers. Are there any questions? Well, hopefully I can answer, but are there any questions about what I've spoken about so far? Evaluation or mentors? I answered everything. All right, I'll move on then. If you think of something, just ask. I'm a big chart maker. This is my elementary teaching coming out, but I like to see visuals. And so I created a couple of charts. I wasn't being egocentric. I only knew what my own manuals were, and I have a whole lot of smiley face stickers at home. So in Toastmasters, we progress. So this is your way to visually see how you're progressing. And you have a handout in front of you that has communication track. On one side, communication, and one side, leadership. And if you're in the advanced manual, that's in the back of your manual, but I wanted to make sure people had it. So you begin in the manuals. The manual, oh thanks. Oh, see, isn't he a good leader? See the thing. Yay. So you begin with number 1. When I joined, there were 15. Now there are 10 objectives in the basic manual. As you progress through each one, you build a ladder of skills. And I'll put a star beside your name, or a smiley face beside, so you can see where you're at. So we can all see and we can support you. After you've completed your competent communicator, advanced bronze, this is the speaker track, you need to complete 2 basic manuals. That's 5 objectives in each one. And if people want a list of all of the various advanced manuals, I can send you one. To move to your advanced silver as a communicator, 2 more advanced manuals. And when you hear that somebody has their distinguished Toastmaster, they've gone through all that, plus a leadership track. So that's the communication track. The leadership track, I put hummingbirds on the top because they're amazing, tiny, weeny little birds. Did you know that the hummingbird is the only bird that can fly backwards? That the hummingbird sleeps at night, that it sleeps at night and uses up almost all of its nutrition during the night. Maybe sometimes you feel like that. You think you wake up and the next day, do you have any energy left to speak or to lead? And yes, you do, because you can invigorate. So that's why I put hummingbirds to motivate you in your leadership. There is a manual, and Karen Fuller asked me about it. This is competent leadership. So this is the first manual that you would work on before you start your advanced leadership track. A lot of the activities in here are activities that you do when you take part in a meeting. How many people have a competent leadership manual right now? How many people have it? You've fulfilled almost every role, but you forget to bring it. Me too. So Sean Tracy had a suggestion, and he sent it to me, and maybe some of you saw it, that everybody bring all your manuals to the meeting. And they don't weigh that much. So in the back of the competent leadership is a project matrix. All you have to do, and Bill Burney was great at doing this, is look back here and figure out which activity you're going to work on and ask someone in the club to evaluate you. They don't do that out loud. They just write in your manual. And as you do it, I just started putting little X's and then highlighted my X's. And that's your competent leadership. All of you take part in our meetings. And so most of what you do is in this manual. And if you need to take a look, you could take a look at mine. So, again, those are the two charts. I'll be filling them out, but I need to know where you're at. So I need to know where you are in your manuals. And if nobody objects, I'd like to hang them up or tape them. Dan has special tape that won't destroy the walls, so that we can take a look. We're a team, we're together. We're a Toastmaster family who support each other. And it's not, just because I'm VP of Education this year, I'm not the only one educating. We educate each other. And the person who joined last week could be educating somebody who's been here for a long, long time. And isn't the whole idea of education that you're open to learning? That you remain open to learning from everyone at every meeting. And whether we have all of our members here or not is not the point. We have people here who gave up a warm July night because they wanted something from our program. And I hope we're providing that for them. Everybody in the room. Were there any questions about the two charts? Are people just tired and worn out, or do you really not have any questions?
Here a question. With the advanced leadership, with the leadership role, should you be asking your evaluator before the meeting? Because that's part of the issue. Everybody's tied up doing something already, and it's finding.
I think getting back to the telephone. Pat Blaney said to me, I phoned Pat once and he said, Pauline, I'm so glad you phoned me. Everybody's emailing. It would be really good if you were evaluating if you knew ahead of time. Like Jimmy didn't know, so he couldn't. But if you know that you're evaluating someone, phone your speaker, or speaker phone your evaluator and say, this is the speech I'm giving, these are my objectives, and you might have something else that you're working on over and above your actual manual objectives. Maybe you're working on feeling more confident up here. Or maybe someone said, well, your voice doesn't carry very well. Maybe you're trying to incorporate me. Maybe you're trying to look more comfortable with props. You could ask your evaluator to also pay attention to that. So it's a good idea, very good idea, for those two people to connect. By the way, in terms of mentoring, you don't have to have just one mentor. You might have more than one mentor for different reasons. And I know that's the case right now, several people in our club. Remember that you, the mentee, are the person that needs to figure out